undertones of that man's entire life since like childhood has been service. Like from start to finish, from the very, very long military career to even what he's doing now with Team RWB. He's just been so service oriented since the beginning.
Welcome to the On the Path podcast, a conversation on navigating life. Join Chris Coker and Colin Chris as they have honest conversations with fellow travelers on the path. In each episode, they explore the physical, mental, and spiritual health aspects of the whole self, striving for personal accountability and a strong community. Gain insights, learn from our mistakes, and hear from guests who have mastered these areas. Step on the path, embracing every challenge and success along the way. See you on the path.
And we're back. Another debrief episode. And this one, honestly, after the episode with Sully, I was really thinking I need to do more than just a marathon. Why not run the marathon backwards first? Or why not do 1,000 burpees before you break a world deadlift, record? I don't know. But he didn't do that. But he is doing something actually more impressive. And just because. And I think that says so much about him. I want to have the energy he has, but I also am just impressed that he does all the things he does with his family in service of his community, but along with the impressive background he has in the military. It was just one of those episodes where you could have talked a long time because it was awesome to hear about everything going on in his life.
Yeah. That's one of those people where you walk away from the conversation and you just feel good. Like he's one of those people that just leaves you feeling good,
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
So for anybody if you're just now hitting in on one of these debriefs, like go back and listen to Sully. Mike Sullivan is his name, Chief of Staff for Team RWB. Cool dude. Like go back and listen to his episode because it's really good. But yeah, I think you were about to hit on it a little bit, Colin. One of the just undertones of that man's entire life since like childhood has been service. Like from start to finish, from the very, very long military career to even what he's doing now with Team RWB. He's just been so service oriented since the beginning.
I think it goes beyond obviously his grandfather, great grandfather, father served. And it goes beyond that. I mean, it obviously is one thing to have it, your family do it, but it's another thing to do it yourself, but then to do it to such a level, because it's not because you have to, it's because you love it. And because of the purpose you get from it. And for him, it was so clear that he spent, 30 years in Army Special Forces. Yeah. But what I thought was so unique about that whole thing was the importance of being a team outside of just the service part. He grew up, he talked about being, money wasn't an object. It was more about, the team sports and being a part of a team. And I think that there's so much there. And I'd love to hear your perspective. Yeah, we got the team sports part, we've got the service part, but money not being a goal, that's always a tricky one, because it's not what our environment or our culture tells us is the purpose of doing things.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things, and Colin, you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, but I'm gonna do Sully a solid here. Okay. He was not saying that money is bad, right? He was just saying that for him growing up, for his family, like money wasn't really the goal. It was service. Like and the important piece here is because they felt, his family, that service was their purpose. I believe that Sully had called that out in our conversation with him, that he felt like his purpose was really rooted in service. And at the end of the day, I know you can relate, Colin. I know what he's talking about. Like nobody joins the military for 30 years to go and make tons of money, right? That's not why people join. So I hear what he's saying, that this idea of like, it wasn't about the money, it's about something else. And that piece I absolutely do agree with. I do not vilify money at all. I like money, of course, right? Like money makes life a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, if we predicate what motivates us with money, you have to ask yourself, like, well, what happens once we get there? right? Like there's too many like tragic stories of wildly successful and famous people that at some point like they hit this like point of depression in their life because they've already got it all right, and it kind of hits them that, oh well, that really wasn't what was bringing me my joy. It's these other things, and it's usually stems from a place of purpose. Like if you can figure out what is it that you are here on this earth to do, that really is more of a driver. Money can be a motivator, but it can't be a driver. It can't be the thing that really pushes you forward and propels you in your life.
I haven't seen it work out, but I think again, our culture doesn't prescribe that as being true. I think it was beautiful for us to hear, obviously, him talk about it, but also he lived it. I think there's so much more we could go down on that route, because it's, as you said, it's probably a distraction in some ways. Obviously, it's really important. You got to have it to live a certain life, or to at least eat and put clothes on your back, or whatever the terms are. But is it going to be the thing if you keep chasing it that truly brings you happiness or truly helps you feel fulfilled? I purposely haven't felt that. I've never experienced that being true. I've experienced that being, if anything, a distraction from what's really going on in life, or from living the life I should be living for myself.
And I'll say, and bear with me, this is kind of the Chris Coker stream of consciousness here. But I think when it comes to purpose or the things that motivate us and drive us, it really is smart to focus on the intangibles, because if it's the stuff that you can grab at, like I said before, it begs the question, what happens if you get there? And human beings are generally hedonistic, right? Like we get comfortable with what we have or what we don't have, right? We hear all these, like what if scenarios, like, oh, something bad could happen. I could lose my job. I could lose my house, Like, but at the end of the day, I would be okay, right? I genuinely believe like I would be okay. I would find a way to make it work. And I think human beings at large kind of are like that, where we manage to find contentment with what we have. And I think the same is true on the other end of that pendulum swing. Like no matter how big your house gets, no matter how big your paycheck gets, like you get pretty comfortable with that reality. And once you do, you're left wondering like, well, what do I need to chase now? Right. So it's this whole idea of if you define success on a destination, then you run the risk of having to redefine it once you get to that destination. So I do believe that things like purpose are important to really ladder on to kind of the intangibles, like service. Like there's not a finite number of things that we can pour ourselves into to be, providing service to others. Right. So it was just a very compelling conversation that he had with us.
I think there's the last thing I'll say, which kind of transitions us to the next topic, is money doesn't buy more time with your family. Money doesn't buy more time with your community. There's so much that money can't do for you. But kind of transitioning there on that community part, he talked so much about shared experiences. We know it's a big part of kind of how Team RWB works in a great way as a veteran nonprofit. But for him, it seemed very much something that gave him a lot of energy, and it makes him who he is. I'd love to hear your perspective. You think about shared experiences, like what is the parts of that with community that make it so much more fulfilling and so much more exciting to do things with other people?
Yeah, I love the question. And I think it actually takes me back to like previous difficult moments in my life where, what's the phrase? I'm sure you've heard it. Embrace the suck, right? Like, or shared commiseration, like where you just kind of, you're going through something difficult and you're going through that thing together. It just makes it easier to get through it because you're together. And again, if it's, it's Team RWB, they do lots of really fun events, right? 5Ks and different lifting events, or it might be a walk or a ruck, or just fun ways to get the community together. And even something like that is a good way to just like sweeten that experience. I think that community really is almost like a force multiplier on whatever it is that you're doing. And it gives you an opportunity to just share in that memory with others. At the end of the day, I don't think that human beings are social creatures, right? So I don't think that we're meant to go through life alone. So this idea of linking community to, obviously it's important to you and I, Colin, right? It's a core pillar of what we talk about. And that's what Team RWB is doing, this idea of creating shared moments to just make those memories richer for everybody involved.
Yeah, that is a great way to capture it. I mean, it is obviously, it's better together. All these things that we hear, shared commiseration. That was an amazing word, Chris. I'll give you credit for that. But what I really like that he hit on too, in addition to that, is other things that Team RWB is looking into and expanding upon with what they're doing to help the veteran community. And I think a big part of that is the mental health aspect. And he talked, or mental well-being, however you want to frame it, but he talked a lot about it. And obviously for him, it was a big thing was education, which is so important. And that's kind of a big staple of this podcast. You and I, we had our moments that were different, and we said, hey, let's learn together on the path. And so education is a part of that. What did you take away from that part of the conversation, especially the education piece versus, providing services?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's validating because at this point, there's so many conversations we've had where we've said like these things are interconnected, like they can't just live in its own vertical. And Team RWB, maybe historically, and it sounds like this is a part of their evolution too. Like historically, you look at them and you say, okay, for our show, really fits squarely in the physical piece and the community piece. And what Sully was taking us through is, well, there's also this overlay of like, the mental aspect is important and helping people understand the why behind the physical. It's not just about being big and strong, but understanding why physical exertion is an important part to holistic well-being. That for me was just a really exciting part of the conversation because, like I said, it validates the conversations we've already had that, yes, there is true psychological and physiological benefits to physical fitness. It's not just two-dimensional. But then the other value in it is also, I think it's a lot more motivating for somebody who doesn't understand the why. As they start to learn about it, they're going to say, oh, it's not just about losing a couple pounds. Like this could really help, could help my mental state. It could help me as a parent. It could help me as a spouse. It could help me as a professional. Suddenly it's a very multifactorial benefit that they receive by involving themselves in physical fitness, in particular, shared experiences and physical fitness.
I think the other part on that is maybe not just about the benefits of the physical activity, but also, okay, maybe I don't feel right, or I don't feel good, or I'm very anxious. Like the education piece of, oh, that's anxiety, or oh, that could be seasonal depression, or maybe depression, or here's how you can get help, or here's different routines or schedules you can bring in to change, or try and start breaking the cycle if you're in a depressive state. Obviously that's oversimplifying it. There's so much there, but at the same time, just helping people understand what these signs and symptoms are huge. And I think that the education piece, while we hit on it very much at a high level, I'm really excited to see what Team RWB is doing and continues to do, especially in this space, because they complement each other so well: physical well-being and mental well-being.
All in all, I think, everything we covered with Sully, from what it was like growing up, being involved in team sports, being so service oriented as a family with just rich military service and history and lineage in his own family, to then being in teams as an adult too, right? As a special operator in the Army, teams have been just kind of integrated into his life, and now he's chief of staff for Team RWB, right? So this idea of community and sharing in experiences with others has been a huge part of his life. And one thing I wanted to add in, Colin, with the education piece, is this was a really good moment to have on the show, because we've been pulling in a lot of like PhD and clinical experts on like, this is why purpose matters. This is why these things are interconnected. So it was so good to hear kind of a real world experience version of that, right? Like Sully is not a clinician. He's not a PhD in why purpose matters, right? But he lives it firsthand in the way that he's chose to lead his life. So that for me was just a really good like anecdotal version of what we're already talking about on the show. So I think this was a really great episode.
I think we can give him a PhD in doing hard things, though, based off his career and what he's still doing, and obviously the impressive things his family's doing, as well as being in the military, or also being a fitness trainer and professional meal prep chef, which made me hungry just thinking about that. But all in all, I just somebody living life, and you can genuinely tell that they're truly enjoying, every aspect of it, good and the bad, and doing hard things. Sully got a PhD in doing hard things. But back to the point, we touched on it briefly, the education piece, especially with mental well-being. That's why we have professionals on the show. Chris used some big words today. I pieced some things together. We crushed it. But at the same time, that's why we have professionals on too, because we need to learn ourselves, and we need to educate ourselves along this journey on the path. And I really appreciated that episode. I appreciated what he's still doing from his own, physical fitness regimen. Again, running an ultra marathon the day before, the reverse path to just run it again. I truly was, I was like, not just an extra push-up at the end or an extra mile, just icing the cake. But
that made me feel so like weak sauce, man. Cause I really like when he was talking about that, and I was thinking like, oh, he was going to say that, I don't know, he like woke up and did a workout before the marathon. No, he just ran the opposite direction the entire length of the ultra marathon the day before the ultra marathon.
I hope his timing's good. I think he's got it though, but we'll have to check back in. And at the end of the day too, he's hopefully running on the path, which I believe he is.
Wow. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Thank you. For everybody listening, if you didn't hear Sully's episode, go check it out. If you don't know much about Team RWB, please go check out their website. You can get involved. You can donate. They are an incredible organization. And again, hearing from their chief of staff, they're truly, filled, the organization itself filled with amazing individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know where to find us, everybody. You can either download, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can listen on all your favorite podcast episodes. Find us on the social channels. Just be sure to get in touch. So with that, Colin, I'll see you on the path.
I'll see you on the path.